The Warden Wither. Those who venture into the darkest catacombs of Minecraft to places where there is hardly any sunlight often don't ever emerge in one piece again. But sometimes, one brave explorer will fight hard enough, survive long enough, and make their way back out of the darkness to the overworld. And when they do, maybe, just maybe, they'll come back with a tale or two to terrify even the toughest and highest level Minecraft players. Stories that tell of shadows, not just the shade cast by an object blocking out a source of light, but actual living creatures made out of pure darkness. But of course, it's all just fantasy, right? Only campfire stories to stop you venturing into the mines for so long that the sun goes down and all the creepers come out. Living shadows! How ridiculous. Nothing like that could ever really exist, right? But then, you make your first journey to the end, and you meet withers, skeletal floating mobs with 3 heads that blast players with explosive skulls, or maybe stumble upon a skulk shrieker in a deep, dark biome, and find yourself fighting for your life with a warden. And then, you start to wonder if these creatures exist, what else could be out there? Could there be such a thing as a Warden Wither? A combination of floating, 3-headed shadow creature and the hulking mobs with antlers that reside deep underground and track through, detecting nearby vibrations. Well, there's only one way to find out. Searching for the answers about the deep, dark secrets of Minecraft is tricky. Depending on where you go and who you ask, you'll no doubt hear a lot of different tales with no clue which are true and which are just legends. Some villagers might tell you that there's no such thing as a Warden Wither, and that if such a thing was real, then surely they'd have heard of it. But then if you make the long hike to the next village over, another villager might tell you that he met a Warden Wither a week ago, and it ran off with all his cobblestone. Who do you believe? Well, it's always best to go directly to the source when you're looking for information. Of course, finding the portal to the end is tricky enough, and once you're there, there's the slight problem of having to also deal with an angry ender dragon too. To make matters worse, withers will naturally attack you when you approach, meaning you can't exactly ask them about the Warden Wither. But then, there's those exploding skulls they throw. Maybe if you're fast enough and you jump at just the right time so you don't get hit, it might be possible to catch one of the wither skeleton skulls in mid-air. And what do you do with it once you have it? Well, first we'd recommend getting the heck out of the end before the ender dragon catches you, or the withers get even angrier at you for stealing their stuff. But once you've made it to safety, wait until night has fallen, somewhere that the mobs of the overworld won't stumble across you to attack. Build yourself a campfire, light it with flint and steel, and sit down facing the warm flames. Take the wither skeleton skull and place it over your head until you're wearing it like a mask. And perhaps, if you manage to get it just right, you might learn the truth about the Wither Warden. Looking through the eyes of the wither skeleton skull, the flames of your campfire start to get brighter, swirling into new patterns until eventually it stops looking like a fire at all. In fact, the whole world around you looks different. It's a vision, a clear vision of the past, feeling even more real than the most vivid dream. And this vision is the true story of the Warden Wither. The vision begins many, many years ago, when the first people began to inhabit the overworld. Nobody could remember where they had come from or how they'd arrived in the world of Minecraft, but they were quick to accept this new place as their home, despite all of its dangers. Climbing up high mountains was always risky, especially when the winds of high altitudes could cause travelers to slip and fall. Deep underground, there were many natural treasures buried for them to discover too, especially diamonds and emeralds. But seeking those out also came with its fair share of risks. Boiling hot lava flowed through the caves, and if anyone dug deep enough, they could find themselves getting seriously burned. And that wasn't to mention the mobs too. At night, when the sun sank out of view behind the horizon, hordes of creatures came crawling out of the dark to cause chaos. Creepers and giant spiders were only the start, as soon the travelers encountered mobs of undead zombies and skeletons. Even more mysterious were the Endermen, tall, shadowy figures that would attack if anyone looked directly at them for too long. And yet, against all adversity, the travelers were able to settle in a few less dangerous parts of the overworld. They built sturdy wooden settlements to house themselves, and these became some of the first villages in Minecraft. The descendants of the travelers were the earliest born villagers, and for many, many years, their communities were able to not just survive, but thrive. They grew crops, mined for resources to build stronger structures and defenses for their homes, and even gathered precious emeralds to use as currency whenever they traded with adventurers or other villages. But remember how dangerous the overworld could be? Well, not everyone was so blessed with hindsight. During the early days, just after establishing one of the very first villages, the settlers living there decided they would fully explore the surrounding land and find out what it could offer them in terms of useful resources. They split off into a few different groups. One group went to chop down trees, gathering up wood to use for buildings and fruit as a source of food. Another group dug up the ground, learning the basics of agriculture. But one of these groups, well, they were sent into a deep, dark cave near the village. Things began well. They quickly figured out they'd need stronger tools to burrow further underground, and had soon developed stone pickaxes. And as they went deeper, the ground uncovered riches beyond their wildest dreams. Gold, diamonds, even things they had no idea how to use like redstone. All of it was transported back to the village, while the villagers kept cheering on the group to mine more, to bring back more. And so, these early mining pioneers kept digging deeper and deeper into the cave, until one day they didn't return. The newly established village was deeply concerned as night fell and the group didn't return from the mine. They knew that the further they dug, the longer it took them to get back home, so some wondered if maybe the mining group had just delved much further than they had before. The villagers waited patiently, expecting that the next day the missing group would return, but there was no sign of them the day after they ventured back into the mine, nor the day after that. Assuming they must have gotten lost or injured, the villagers came together to deliberate on what should be done. The option of sending a search party down into the mine to look for them came up. Some of the villagers opposed the idea. What if those who were sent to look also got lost underground? Then they'd have to send another search party to find the first one, and it'd be a never-ending cycle of more and more going missing. And besides, nobody could navigate those caves better than the mining group. They had the most experience of being underground after all. But plenty of the other villagers argued back against this. They weren't happy with the idea of just leaving the mining group to figure their own way back out. Some of them could be hurt and unable to move. And what's more, they had only been digging deeper and deeper into the mines because of the demands of the village. They had requested more gold, more diamonds, all of them. Not just those that thought they should figure it out themselves, but everyone was guilty of such requests. And so, because everyone in the village had been part of the reason the mining group was underground to get themselves lost in the first place, it was everyone's responsibility to get them home. And so the debate went on, while there was still no sign of the mining group. Eventually, it was agreed that the decision would be put to the vote, with one side of the village arguing that they should send a search party into the mine, and the other side saying that idea was a waste of time. Counting up the votes, the result was eventually agreed that the village would send a team underground to rescue the mining group. The search party delved into the mine, unfamiliar with how to find their way around underground. It was so much darker than they'd expected. They'd been out in the dark before, during the nighttime, but there were always stars or the moon up above. Down in the mines, there was real darkness. The villagers waited with bated breath for the search party to return. Those who'd voted in favor of sending a rescue team hoped they'd see them re-emerging with the mining group in tow. But instead, only one made it back. The survivor was in a state of terror. Once he was able to speak, he could describe what he and the rest of the search party had found. At a deep enough level of the mines, there were strange plants, skulk growth. The survivor explained that the mining group must have run out of food rations and started eating the skulk growth in the hopes that it would stave off their hunger. And it seemed to have worked, but at an unexpected cost. The plants had transformed the mining group into something never seen before. They lost the ability to see, already so used to how dark it was in the mine. Instead of using their eyes to see, these creatures could listen for vibrations and sniff the air to detect anything that might be moving around. They were much stronger and had overpowered the rescue party with their powerful sonic boom attacks. The villagers soon came up with a new name for their former mining group and the creatures they had become, the Wardens. Before long, the word about the incident had spread in the form of a warning to other villages, and adventurers brave enough to venture into the deep, dark biomes. Warden became a name given to those who had spent too long in the dark, so much that they seemed to become oddly protective of it. They were all former humans who could now only see through the vibrations around them and were incredibly strong. But there was a small group from the original village who weren't content to just treat the wardens as monsters. They had been human once, after all, until the skulk growth had changed them. But what if there was some way to undo that change? This path of questioning led them down a path that most others were afraid of, and that some even forbade. The path of magic. A crimson wizard tried mixing potions or casting spells to revert the wardens back to their original human forms, but time and time again, nothing seemed to work. And in his desperation, the crimson wizard turned to forces he didn't understand for help. Many had heard tales of another realm, a world beyond all others, a place called the End. The Crimson Wizard constructed a portal to the End, hoping to commune with the strange spirits there and be granted a magic greater than his own that could help cure the wardens. And, in a sense, he was granted a magic that was greater than this, but it would lead to dire consequences. A treacherous wither agreed to help the Crimson Wizard, but in exchange for a price. It would only do so if the Crimson Wizard helped it enter the overworld through his portal and allowed the Wither to keep a form for itself in his realm. In their eagerness to help the wardens, the Crimson Wizard agreed, putting his trust into a Wither that was determined to double-cross him. When it was freed into the overworld, the Wither did change the wardens at least, or rather, it only changed one of them. When the Crimson Wizard led the Wither to the deep dark where the wardens roamed, the floating three-headed mob used only the darkest of magic. It took control of one of the wardens, casting a charm that fused their forms into one new, terrifying being, the Warden Wither. Realizing he'd been tricked, the Crimson Wizard tried desperately to do battle with the Warden Wither. He tried to cast spells, launching energy blasts and lightning bolts at it, but nothing was working. The new Warden Wither had the terrifying powers of the Warden and Wither combined. It launched deadly Wither skulls and fired terrifying sonic booms until the hapless Crimson Wizard who'd brought it into the world was no more. And as the Crimson Wizard was the only one who'd truly known how this monster was made, he was also the only one who knew how to unmake the beast, a secret that went to the grave with him. The new Warden Wither rose out of the deep dark, its combined body allowing it to terrorize the villagers who'd unknowingly aided in its creation. In their hopes of saving their friends from a monstrous state, they'd created a monster worse than any Warden or any Wither, with all of their most frightening qualities combined. To this day, legends say that the Warden Wither is still out there, hiding in the deep dark and coming out at night to search for victims. So if ever you find yourself wandering through the overworld at night and hear strange noises coming from an abandoned mineshaft nearby, run back to your base as soon as possible and hope that you weren't followed. For an encounter with a Warden Wither leaves few to tell the tale.